Hi everyone, this is Gayle. Welcome to my channel tonight. Um, I'm picking up some feedback. Hold on. Hi everyone again, this is Gayle. Welcome to my Bodacious channel, my Bodacious live stream. We are having some technical issues tonight that I think I just got resolved. I hope so anyway. I'll have to go back and clip some of that beginning part out. But anyway, have you ever wondered what volunteerism is all about? I recently returned from a volunteer experience in Alaska, as you all know, if you've been following my videos. If not, do check them out because we had some great experiences. So I've got some questions people have asked and some things I wanted to talk to you about. But I can attest that having a volunteer experience through voluntourism has a big, profound impact on your life. It's a burgeoning movement. It's a travel journey that you can take, but it's essential to understand some of the details before you sign up and what to expect. Um, and we're going to be talking about some of those tonight. So, my name is Gayle, and if you have not subscribed, I want to invite you to go ahead and do that right now. It's that red button down below. And if you're catching this on a replay, I want to thank you. And by all means, do go ahead and join the channel. Make sure you share it with your friends too, because that's how we grow. So, volunteerisms are a great experience if you know what to expect and you go in with realistic expectations. That was actually one of the questions that I was asked. Um, and I was asked how I chose who I went with. So, I think they're asking about the program that I went with. And I will say that it is essential to go with a program that's got a truth proven track record because you can get into some bad experiences pretty quickly. And weeding out and choosing that program that's got a good track record is make or break. Um, I went through the United Methodist Volunteers in Missions. Highly recommended. If you have that avenue open to you, it is a church-based group. It's called MVM. I've always had a good travel experience with programs put together with and by them. And part of that is, your expectations and what they can offer. So, voluntourism is this movement that's sweeping the country. It's also called volunteer travel. If you all have heard about that, then that is, what we're talking about. Hold on, I'm getting a message here that I'm still having tech problems. Okay. Gloria, you may need to refresh your browser. That you can hear me, but you can't see me. Okay. Try to refresh your browser. I'm opening up another window so I can check the progress. Okay, so I see myself. So hopefully you do too now. If that didn't fix it, then let me know, okay? And I'll hop on it. So, all right. Volunteerism, I went through United Methodist Volunteers in Mission. Let me back up here. I also have a note asking me to define volunteerism, which is in the title. What is volunteerism and what to expect? So, volunteerism is this fusion of volunteering and tourism, where where you can actually contribute to helping others while you explore new places, and it helps you have deeper travel experiences because you're really connecting with the people there, and that's how you can find out. like all the really neat things that there are to see and do after your work is finished. Um, it can be transformative. Voluntourism is a very deep experience for a lot of people, and it can transform your lives. There are people, okay, I volunteered in Alaska, but there are people who have been to Alaska on volunteer experiences and then forgot to come home afterwards because they liked being there so much. And I think that's true for a lot of areas. But it goes back to, with the experiences that you have, you want to make sure that you have realistic expectations so you can understand a little bit about the area before you go, which is really, really helpful. So let me back up and talk about my experience with the United Methodist Volunteers in Mission. Okay. One of the things that they offer that we encourage people to take. Now, I have been on around 10 mission trips. I've also sponsored teams and had them come in and work at the church that I served and at the mission center that I directed. So I've had experience with being on trips, coordinating coordinating teams on the ground locally, as well as putting mission trips together. I also used to work in the travel industry, and I've written articles also for over a decade. So I come at this with various perspectives, and hopefully this will all help. So one of the things that United Methodist Volunteers in Mission offers that I feel like is hugely important is insurance. Things can happen anywhere, and a volunteerism experience is no different. In fact, it's a little riskier because you may be working with equipment that you're not used to working with and doing things that you're not used to doing. But there's also a tendency, I think, to let your guard down and take more risks than you might not take at home. And so that can lead into injuries. And of course, there's all the normal things that can come up. So it's very important to me to know that I'm insured and that my team is insured. So the United Methodist Volunteers in Mission offers that. There's a fee. It's not that much. It's like $1 a day, I think it is. Any program though that you sign up with, you want to know that they have some kind of backing like that, so you don't have to worry as much. You also want to know what that coverage is, which is kind of a different program than what we're doing right now. But I have been on a couple of mission trip experiences that insurance wasn't required and almost got into a problem at one of those experiences. I was on a trip and these kids, if you will, they were actually college aides, they were out playing what was supposed to be touch football, okay? So you don't expect injuries with that. Well, in this case, guess what happened? Somebody forgot it was supposed to be touch football only. And so what happened was they fell and cracked a couple of ribs. And now insurance was not required for that volunteerism experience. So everybody just kind of held their collective breaths while the family member that was with this person was on the phone trying to figure out what hospital nearby was in network as opposed to out of network because nobody wants to pay more than you have to. And finally, they found one in network that was like an hour away. Well, if insurance had been required, and might not have needed to have worried so much about which hospital. And even if it's not required, if it's just offered, that's great too, because at least you can make a more informed decision going that way. So whatever program you choose, if you're looking at a volunteer travel experience, do try to look at one that offers the insurance. And one of the other things about this proven track record that really comes in that's important is you want to make sure that it gives you some assurance that the trip is well organized. Unfortunately, I've been on a couple of mission trips that just were not well organized. And as we talk back here, I'm going to try to show some photos behind me. This is my van. So, yay, van life. And we're on the Seward Highway right outside of Anchorage there. So, I'll be trying to put a few pictures up here on the virtual background so we can talk about them as we go through. The organization on the trip is so important because if you don't have, hey, Stellar Piper's in the house. There we go. Hi, Stellar. It's good to see you. She's actually been on a mission trip with me and is a trained mission team leader herself, which is kind of cool to have you here. So, the organization, just if you're going through a program like them, and there's some other programs out there also, then you have a more reasonable expectation that it's going to be well organized. The last thing that anybody wants to have happen is to go on a trip and find out it's kind of a disaster. So you don't want that at all. So your homework really does help a lot in this situation because you know that you can have a well-organized trip if you go with a good program. So let me see here. I want to change this. If it'll change. I don't know. Okay, maybe it just doesn't want to change here. Here we go. We were working on this trip. We were working with chainsaws. Can y'all see that behind me? I hope you can. Yeah, I'll just move around a little bit. So we're working with chainsaws here. And the last thing in the world that you want to have happen is to get in a program like this one and have it be haphazard when you're working with powerful equipment, right? So there are waivers. We actually had to have a training session on the ground on how to use the chainsaw, and it didn't matter if you already knew how to use it or not. Going through the training session was not an option. It was not optional. You had to do it. And so that really helped everybody be more in tune with that particular equipment and how to use it because just because you're used to working with a certain brand of chainsaw or whatever does not mean that place that you're going to is going to have the same type of equipment. So it really helps for things like that when it comes to organization. You also want to make sure that the program is used to getting people from point A to point B. There is so much that goes into a mission trip. So let me see. Stellar Piper, did you have anything you wanted to see? I see a comment raised. She's saying chainsaws and haphazard do not go well together. No, they don't. Did you feel better for having your chainsaw training on the ground there at the mission work site? Because I know that she had that experience. Yeah, she was slinging wood with us one year. So, yeah. So there's so much that goes into a mission trip. Let me just kind of give you a brief background. We've actually got a live stream that's going to be scheduled with another mission trip leader in the future. So after you do your diligence and you've picked out a good program that you want to travel with, one of the things that you want to look at is their track record. Because they often have to be the ones that are going to be looking for those airline tickets and setting them up. Now, you may have to make arrangements with a travel agent yourself, but they may give you the flight numbers and say, this is what the team is using. We're flying out on airline A. We're getting there at such and such time. Here's the flight number. So that way you can try to get on the same flight. You also have to have some kind of ground transportation arranged for, whether that's rental cars or buses. And of course, on site, you have the challenges of how are you going to feed everybody and how are you going to get to the various places that may be required on site. So you have to look at all of that. And when you go with a program like MVIM or one of the other good quality programs that are out there, then you don't have to worry about that as much. And that frees you up to be able to really interact with the people that you're working with. Hey, we have Valerie Reese here. Hi, Valerie. I thought you were on vacation. Valerie also went with us to Alaska. Did a great job. Fabulous job, by the way. She cooked. And if you get a chance to have somebody like Valerie cooking, go for it because she did a fabulous job. So, hands to Valerie. So, yeah, organization on the trip is a huge, huge deal. And so, you have the expectations and the right to expect a well-organized trip. I've been on a couple that were not well organized, and my husband actually went on a volunteer experience abroad, and it was a disaster. It fell apart. It was just a disaster. And that's not ideal, you know. So the more of a good solid track record they have, the more you can expect a good experience. And let's see. She's in Hilton Head. Yay. Hilton Head is beautiful. It's a good time to be at the beach too. An amazing day catching huge fish. Awesome. All right. I hope you're going to have videos on that coming in the future. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah. So, I won't go into details on what all fell apart on the mission trip that he went on, but let it suffice to say that some people weren't sure how they were going to get back home. Okay. And they were showing up places to volunteer that didn't know they were coming. So, again, not ideal. It really makes a huge difference. So, some of the questions you want to ask is how many mission trips has the leader put together? Or how many mission trips has the organization put together is also a good possibility for a good question to ask. Can they give you references? Do they that you can check with and find out how that mission travel experience went? References are always good. And pay attention to what people say. You know, you want to hear more than, oh, yeah, they're a great person. Of course they organized it. You know, you want to hear some specifics, so ask about that. United Methodist Volunteers in Mission, it's a church organization and it trains mission team leaders, but that doesn't mean that all mission team leaders have experience yet. And so I would encourage you to ask. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to have a bad experience if they don't have experience yet, because everybody starts out from ground zero. We all start out from day one, whatever we do. And it can mean that they're more on top of things and more organized. But talk to them and you can kind of get a feel for whether you or not, you think you really want to go. Hey, Busy Lady is here. Hi, Busy. Good to see you. Very good to see you too. So, all right. The other thing is, some of the expectations that you may have is the expectation that you're going to work hard. This work, the chainsaws behind me that you see, that was not easy. That was really hard. And a lot of us were not used to doing wood and chainsaws. So yeah, here we go. Here's a better photo behind me. There, I think you can see. Let me bend over here. I'll get the mic out of the way. There you go. So this was one delivery. One delivery. If y'all saw my last video, it's like 1 minute and 22 seconds, but it's on us actually making this delivery, and it went to a couple of people in Alaska. And then what we did was we turned the trailer around and went and started all over again with the whole cutting and stacking. And ground zero. Here we are, back here. And then we went back and did that, and we reloaded to do this all over again for somebody else. And that got hard. And in the kitchen, Valerie was just absolutely working her little tail off, plus helping with the wood. And it was hard. But not every part of this was necessarily hard physical labor. Some of it was hard emotional labor too, because you're there and you're seeing people that need help. And so you're there and you're trying to help. And there is a tendency for some people to take not just ownership, but really kind of internalize the experience. And you want to have it, you can expect to have it touch your life in some way, maybe even be transformative. But the problems, you're not there to solve the problem. And some people have the expectation that you are. You are there to provide a set service for a specific period of time. You're there for a season. And so we were there cutting wood, and we had a whole woodshed to fill. We also had a food pantry truck to unload, a trailer full of school supplies to unload, and lots of things to do like that. And the work was there before we got there. We did our part, and then the work continues after we leave. And that is something that happens on every single mission trip, okay? Some people have the expectation that you're going to go in and you're going to solve the problem. And that's not the case, because the problem that you're working with is bigger than you are. There is a line of people who need wood. In this case, that's what we were doing. And there's going to be a line of people that need wood. So you can't solve everything. So I think it's really important to go in, and you guys can give me your thoughts there in the chat. But I think it's really important to go in realizing that you can do the best you can, but you're not going to fix it. You're going to help it. Let's see. Here we go. Stellar Piper is saying, you can't solve a major issue in a week, but it is possible to fill a woodshed. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we did. We filled the woodshed. We had several deliveries that we had to make. And we also, part of what we did while we were there is just to remind the people that were on the ground that we were there. So I think that's a reasonable expectation for you to have, is that you can't solve the problems, but you can help. Another expectation that you should have is you're going to have to be flexible on a mission trip. And that means your schedule may not go as you planned. My husband and I had one that was really nice, neat, laid out. And then it just kind of went right out the window at times, because the local site really is who determines your schedule. And so there are changes that happen, and it's not always in control of your leaders, but it can be, it's under the control oftentimes with the people on site, and it's based on what they need. So, for example, we had some extra tourism experiences offered to us that weren't on the schedule, that we didn't know we were going to get to take advantage of until, ta-da, you're here, you have this opportunity. Also, we had, I hope to have some activities for people who are, like me, a little less able sometimes to do things than others. And unfortunately, that kind of didn't happen again because of the work site situation had changed with one of the people who worked in the food pantry there. So let's see. Stellar says, your job on a mission trip is to be a drop in the bucket. You can't fill it up alone, but every drop helps. Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think that's really well said. And it's important to remember that. So I guess going in with the expectation of being a drop in the bucket is something to look at. The other thing is, I think you can go in with the expectation that something can go wrong. Things can go wrong at home, and things can go wrong on a mission trip. So look at what the possibilities are for what could go wrong and kind of plan on it. We had a woman on a mission trip one time, and she had forgotten to fill her gas tank, and we got part way to where we were going, and her gas light came on. So what do you do when you're in Alaska and you're kind of not near anything that's really convenient as far as a gas station goes, and your gas light comes on? So it's things like that can happen. And in our case, she had a car full. There were 5 people in the car, and all 5 of us had AAA. So there was no problem getting help. You can get up there and find out that your cell phone may not work, because cell phones only work when they have a signal, and you may be in a place that might not have a signal. So what do you do then? There we are. So what do you do then? And in my case, before I went, I switched cell phone providers. I love Straight Talk. I've loved Straight Talk since I had it. But I was driving through Canada, and Straight Talk did not have service in Canada. So I switched to Google Fi. Had real good experience, real good reception. But if I had not planned ahead for what could go wrong, I probably wouldn't have had that cell phone provider. So, look at, your reasonable things about, what could go wrong. Because if you expect something to go wrong and it doesn't, then you are in great shape. If you don't expect something to go wrong and it does, then there's a problem, And so go in with that expectation, and hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised and nothing will happen. Stellar Piper is saying, no, something will go wrong. Yeah, it definitely, if you plan on it, then I think that puts you in a much better frame of mind. We had everybody on our trip, except for one person. Everybody on the mission team this year had something go wrong. And when Stellar went, she had something go wrong. And so it was airlines. You usually can rely on airlines, but not always. And so we had luggage lost, delays, all kinds of things happen. Let's see, Valerie is saying your airline could postpone your flight for a day. Yeah. A Stellar Piper, that's kind of what happened to you, isn't it? And then one of you all arrived and your luggage didn't. Some stuff. So, if you're if you're with an airline and you expect that something might go wrong, then you might put an extra t-shirt and toothpaste and toothbrush in your carry-on, So look at your average things that could go wrong and go in with that expectation. And then, because that means you will have already acted to mitigate any possible problems on your volunteer experience, and you'll be much better off. Let's see. Stellar says something like that. So yeah, she had airline problems too. In my case, I had tire problems. because I drove up, and you kind of expect tire problems when you're on a trip. So you got to look at those too. And again, when I looked at what could go wrong with the vehicle, my answer was AAA. And boy, was I ever glad. But even with that, the first year that I went, um, we switched over to from our usual AAA that gives you like 5 miles, and we got the AAA that you have a 200-mile tow on. So it really, 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 really made a difference. So that's one expectation that you can think about there. But you should also expect good things. I'm not saying it's gloom and doom necessarily, but you should expect good things too. You should expect to be able to connect with the local people on the ground. You should be able to expect to have a good time, to relax and enjoy your volunteer travel. Um, so definitely, keep in mind the good things too. Let's see, what is Stellar Piper saying here? Okay, something like that. So yeah, so expect those things, um, and expect to just really be able to connect with the area and with the people that you're with in a deep and profound way, because that's why you're going. Okay, that's your expectation. Here's my tire here, and you can see it's kind of wobbly on this part. So yeah, and I think really connecting is a huge part of what volunteerism is all about, because you're helping them, but you're also learning and you're gaining new skills. I'd never used a chainsaw before my first experience on a volunteer travel adventure. That was kind of cool. Now, have I used a chainsaw since? No. Will I? Probably not. So that may have been my one and only time to be able to use the chainsaw, and it was really kind of cool. I'm not going to lie, you know. So, um, let's see what else here. What else? Um, so those are some of the common expectations. Cost. Somebody has asked me, how much should a volunteerism experience cost? And what should I budget for out of pocket expenses? And I think they're really wanting to know like how to travel free or how to travel cheap. And one of the reasons why I do this personally is because this is how I travel cheap. I'm not going to say it's how I travel free, because it is not. But on the work site, um, in at this particular instance, and some of the others that I've been involved with, the housing while you're on the work site was taken care of. So we paid, like, I think on this one, help me out, you all. Was it like $50 for the week? I forgot actually what we charged. It was whatever the church wanted. So you're going to make a contribution to expenses. So you got to plan on that. But here's the big thing, and that is that people will help. If you're helping others, then people will usually help you. And that is something that you need to keep in mind, because you're going on the volunteer experience, you're going to help, and people want to be involved who can't necessarily leave home, so they can help you financially. And for example, we weren't expecting to have fundraisers, but people did give us, the team, some financial support, and it was a huge help. So, you know, it was, it's, you pay money for this is in general, okay? This is all the mission trips that I've been on, and the ones I organize. So you pay your money for your food. You make your contribution to the church to help offset the cost of utilities and so forth that they have to bear. You pay for that. You also pay for your insurance, your transportation there. And that's close to it. Now, on this case, we had a woman a couple actually, that donated all of our non-perishable food. That really reduced the amount that we had to pay because let me tell you, groceries in Alaska, they're not cheap. And I did a video on that, shopping at Walmart. So go check that out because not cheap at all. And we went to Fred Meyer, which is like Kroger, and we saw watermelons. And I thought, oh, this will be great for the team. We'll get a watermelon. It's like at home. And I looked at the price and nearly had heart failure there on the spot. It's totally crazy. I'm going to pull this up so you can see what kind of price we were looking at. It was insane. You've got to see this to believe it, honestly. Here we go. Oh, it's not going to show up. Little bit of it is $14.99. Can y'all believe that? For a watermelon. For a watermelon. It's insane. And look, they were selling them. Because this container is down a little bit on the top. So you can see it. They're selling them. Because that's what people have to pay. So I guess another thing that you can expect is that your food prices, individually items, will be different sometimes than what you got at home. Let me just say that. Because I personally was not expecting a $15 watermelon. And I've been there a bunch of times. Was anybody else expecting $15 watermelons? Stellar says something on the trip will take you out of your comfort zone, and you may be surprised what that is. True. And agree completely. There you go. So there's a lot to think about before you go on a volunteer experience. Now, for me, something that I really like, and one of the reasons why I like taking people to Alaska is because you're still on U.S. soil. It feels foreign. And in some ways it kind of is because it's a different culture than what a lot of us are exposed to at home. So it kind of feels foreign, but everybody speaks English. You have English-speaking doctors if something happens. You know what a lot of the customs are. You may not know all of it, but you know what a lot of the customs are. And so you still have this feeling that you're not at home, but you're still on U.S. soil. So if something comes up, I think it's easier to face that and to take care of it. I'm going to share a screen here. This is from my first trip to Alaska. So when I'm talking about going out of your comfort zone and the culture may be a little bit different, I want you to have an idea of what I'm talking about. And that is the bathroom. May be very different than what you're used to. So kind of expect to be out of your comfort zone there. Can you all see this okay? Enough to tell what this is. This is an outhouse. This is legitimately actually what we used on a construction site the first time we went to Alaska. Because we were doing construction. But even the church had us using an outhouse essentially an outhouse too. Let me pull this one up. Yeah, this was our bathroom at the church. Because the first time we went, we had 15 people who went, plus the church had the ministry going on. One of the things that they do is they have a shower ministry with people coming in that need to bathe. And so they have a shower ministry. And so they were concerned that with everything that we might overtax their system. So they had to get a portable toilet in. How many of us use this every day? You know, I don't. How about you all? So, yeah. So the expectations, go in, can, just expect to be pulled completely out of that comfort zone. Okay. So another expectation that you should have, at least if you're going on an UMVM trip, is you have to have at least one cultural experience. And that really helps you connect with the folks there and helps you understand more like some of the challenges and some of the things that they deal with. So for our cultural experience, we went to, well, actually, we did several. We went to a museum. We went to Denali National Park. We drove Hatcher Pass. Several other, my brain is shutting down. We did several different things there. And so that really helps us understand more of what happens with them day to day. One of the things that we did was we went and helped a family who had problems because of a fire. And it had come close to their house, but it didn't get their house, but it got their outbuilding. And so being there and talking to them helped us understand. But as we drove up and down that Parks Highway, then you could see the remnants of the forest fire from a couple of years ago. And so we got to kind of be confronted with what is it like if you're not in an area that has to worry about forest fires? What is it like if you all of a sudden are transported and you're talking to people who live with the reality that there could be a fire that impacts their home? What kind of change in mindset might that lead to? So, your cultural experiences don't necessarily have to be going to Denali or going to Hatcher Pass. It can be talking to somebody like that and then driving up and down the highway and seeing those trees that have burned and the remnants that are still there. But some of the really neat experiences, though, oh my gosh, from being at Denali and so forth. Let me pull some of this up, okay, so you all can see this. Because for me, okay, here's one of the things to me, and that is when you go somewhere and you see a giant expanse of forest, the hills, the mountains, the stream, and you see this phenomenal scenery laid out in front of you. What does that mean? What does that mean? We all get really excited sometimes when we go and see these ginormous expanses, whether we go to Denali or the Smoky Mountains or Shenandoah National Park. We see these wide open spaces. But you know what else that means? It means there's no jobs. Because what you're not seeing is you're not seeing billboards. You're not seeing advertisements. You're not seeing those McDonald's Golden Arch signs. Those are not there. And so once you realize that, it puts a slightly different perspective on what your experience. Let me pull this up, for example. We went through Hatcher Pass, and Hatcher Pass is a place that people actually live there. There are some houses, but it's really, really out there. Okay, so let me pull this up. So this is one of the road. Whoops, go away. This is one of the roads that we were on in Hatcher Pass. Now this road is seasonal, and it had just opened a week or two before we got there. So we're seeing this grand expanse, okay? We're seeing this beauty. We're seeing a road like this, and we know that people live there, and we're there as tourists, and there are people who are not tourists. And so once you look at it from that perspective, then it changes your interpretation of what you see. And so I think that when you're looking at having meaningful experiences on a volunteer work travel, that's one of the things that, it just changes, and you don't look at things. You still appreciate the beauty. I'm not saying that, but it changes your interpretation, and I think it gives you a deeper experience. What do you all think? I mean, that's my thought. And of course, we were up there doing church mission work, which is a little different than some of the secular volunteer experiences also. So you expect a spiritual component with that. So it all kind of ties in together, And UMFM does have volunteer opportunities in USA as well as abroad. So if you wanted to do that. So yeah. As far as the cost, if you're planning a trip to Alaska, just for example, just in general, then you have to budget for hotels. And those hotels in Alaska, I will tell you, they are not cheap. But when you're only paying $50 for a week at the work site, then that really helps balance the cost out. Excuse me. Now, it's not all fun and games by any means. You do have to work. That's your point for being there. But when you're not working, you get to enjoy lots of different things. Hey, Iron Fire Horse. Welcome, Irene. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So like our experience here at Denali National Park, you saw that the mountain that you just saw a few minutes ago, you saw that, but there are also these businesses. I'll move this mic. These businesses that you see behind me here, they're there all year long. Tourist season is in the summer. So you've got to balance the understanding of that with the understanding of the mountain. And see in the back here, there are no billboards and signs and stuff. They're all in Denali Village. Whoops, wrong one. Denali Village. So I just think, again, once you kind of get a feel for that, it changes the way you look at things. And when you go to someplace like Denali and you're on a trip with other people, then, for example, one of the ways we saved money was a lot of people had free passes. So I don't think we had to pay for anybody to go into Denali. Of course, we did cut it short with the visitor center. We got there, like 2 minutes before they closed, just long enough to pay our fees. So it really, really helps. And let's see, Valerie is saying that they found an affordable bed and breakfast in Anchorage for some extra days to spend there after the mission trip, which is phenomenal. But you didn't have to, the shoulder experiences really help in terms of like saving the cost. Because let's say you've got somebody helping you with your travel expenses, like in our case, maybe the church had a fundraiser to help you with the airfare or experiences, or maybe people gave you a few dollars here and there. Whether it's a lot or a little, it all helps. So if you already have the cost of getting there taken care of or getting some help with it, then you don't have to worry about that. And you don't have to worry about the week on the work site. And it frees you up, to have these shoulder experiences on the Voluntourism. So let's see. Iron Firehorse says, what if you're disabled and can't necessarily do all the things they want or as fast as they expect? Good question. Normally on volunteer experiences, there is something for everyone to do. And when I mean everyone, I mean that one of the things that we had planned for somebody to do was literally to go around, hand out bottles of water, refill our water bottles, and tell us, drink water. It sounds like a really small thing to do, but here's the thing. Dehydration is one of the number one ways on mission trips that people can get hurt. Because when you start to get dehydrated, you start making decisions that you wouldn't necessarily always make. You can get dizzy, you can get sick, you can pass out. None of that is desirable when you're working with chainsaws. Just saying. And so we actually had a person on not this mission trip, but the previous one that we put together. And like her sole task was to say, drink water. Some of the other experiences or other opportunities that people had to do was to cut out decorations for Vacation Bible School. We had a mail out also that we had to do. So we addressed and stamped envelopes for a couple of 400 pieces of mail. So yeah, things like that. And certainly cooking, washing dishes, all of those things, taking out the trash or seeing if make sure somebody took out the trash. The daily schedule keeper. One of the mission trips that we went on before that had like 16 people went on it. They were spread out from different houses and different places to stay. So they actually had someone that they had designated and said, you are the timekeeper. So on this person, in addition to taking care of the snacks, which they did a great job with, their task was to call the other people on the team and say, hey, time to get up. We're meeting in 1 hour at place X. Now, we didn't need that on this experience, but there have been people who did that on other mission teams. So they really try, the ones that we've been on that were organized through UMVM, let me say that, really tried to have things for every physical ability. This time it got a little skewed, simply because I think it's because they have a food pantry that they do and feeding program and so forth for kids. We had expected to be much more involved with that, but the person who was over those opportunities wound up having to have shoulder surgery, and then she happened to be going out of town when we got there, which had never happened before on this work site. Not any of the times I've been there. So normally there's a little bit more that people can do that have different abilities. than this side. That is something that we try to plan for. And let me see, Valerie's saying, oh, and I will say, let me go back. I walk with my leg brace, so I am not the fastest person on the planet, and everybody's been really kind to me on mission trips because I cannot keep up with people. So let me go. Let's see. Okay, Valerie's saying that her sister is disabled and she went with us and she worked at her speed. They can't judge someone who is limited in the amount of help they can give. We all have limitations. Very, very true. And, on the mission trips that I do, of course, I'm very aware and I really try hard to accommodate everybody because everybody tries hard to accommodate me. And it's kind of a group effort. But if I know somebody is going that is going by themselves, let's say, then I will try to make everybody aware if the person is okay. I will try to make everybody aware that, hey, we have to watch out for this person. We have also been very fortunate so far, knock on wood, all of the mission trips that we have put together have had either a nurse or at least one first responder on the trip. So if the person had a medical issue, and I have seen this happen, I've experienced this on a trip where the person came to me and said, hey, I have health issue X. Nobody needs to do anything, but I need somebody to know. So in case I do this symptom, or this symptom, somebody will know how to respond. And I was able to go to some of the folks that had a little bit of medical knowledge and say, hey, this is the situation. Watch this person. Stellar, can I pick on you for a minute on a situation that we had with you? Even though it wasn't a mission trip, we went skiing once. I hope she's going to say yes. I'm going to give her just a second here. I'm also going to download another picture so you guys can see it in a second. Okay. Well, she didn't say yes, so I'm going to hope it's okay. But she has epilepsy. She's done videos on this with me, and we've talked about it in the past. So with her, she has epilepsy. So we're on a ski trip with a youth group, having a really good time. And my younger daughter comes running into me saying, Mom, Stellar's in first aid. She's just had a seizure. So we go to first aid and I check on Stellar Piper. And yeah, she actually did say that. Yes. Okay. So we go on a mission trip. Go on the youth trip skiing, and I get that message. So we go to first aid and we take care of Stellar Piper. And after that, a lady comes up to me and she says, can I help you with Stellar Piper? And I'm like, well, I think she's okay now. But here's the thing. Stellar Piper wanted to go out on the slopes. Now, this body don't ski. I hope to be able to hit the slopes this winter just to see if I can. But, I had some physical issues. Plus, I had to stay in the lodge and help the kids that came in, that needed their break from skiing and stuff. But of course, Stellar Piper wanted to go out. This lady came to me and says, can I help you with Stellar Piper? And then she said, I heard you say she has seizures, and I am familiar with that. By the way, I work in the medical field. So it's like, yes. So off she went. And so ever since that youth group experience, that has gone over into my experience of putting together mission teams so that we would have at least one medical person on the team. So that way, we had somebody who had some knowledge. So, let's see. Iron says, "Oh man, I could never ski now. LOL. Wouldn't take the chance." Gotcha. Well, of course, everybody's got different physical things going on. But I actually talked to somebody last winter, and she fitted people for skis. And even though she wasn't, this was not a job situation, we were at a restaurant and we were just talking about it. And so she's like, "Let me look at your leg." And so I let her, and she was like, she's like, "I think you can do this." So I'm going to try to give it a whirl. I may fail miserably. That happens too. Excuse me. Yeah. So I think that those are some of the things to think about. Some of the expectations that you should have. Also, this worksite did a fabulous job for me of putting together a list of places, including medical facilities. The clinics is mostly what they have in Alaska. They don't have like trauma centers like we have in the lower 48. But they put a list of that together for me, as well as gas stations and things like that. So we had a copy of that in the fellowship hall. Let's see. She still wants to go out on the slopes. Skiing is fun. Take a lesson first, though. Yeah. Definitely. So, yeah. So those are some of the things that I think that you can expect. And that's kind of what voluntourism is. The other thing about voluntourism, excuse me, is how it helps the local economy. So I'm going to pull this up. Give me just a second here to find my link because I accidentally closed it out. I can't find it. I'll have to post it on the community tab. But volunteering helps the local community, this type of volunteer travel, because it helps bring dollars into the struggling economy. When we go, and for example, when we visit Denali, we also went to a restaurant there at Denali, so they got some meals that sold that they wouldn't have otherwise. We had to buy gas at the gas station, and that's gas that they wouldn't have sold otherwise. Again, we went to the store, we had to buy some supplies, things like that. And so all of that helps the local economy. So when we have a volunteer experience, we go and help not just the people that we're working with, but we help in a greater sense as well. Now, granted, we don't make $1 million impact, but there were several of us spending money. And so you can expand that on out. If you have 20 people or 40 people, let's say you have 2 mission teams come in and they've got 15 people each, and you're putting money into the offering plate on Sunday and contributing to the church for the utilities. And then all the money that you spend, whether it's small amounts or large amounts, all of that helps to benefit the local community. And so it's a spin-off of us going and volunteering. But I think you could argue that we get the most out of it, if that helps. Let's see. Irene says, I had my middle back broken when I was 27 skiing. That's the bone that broke again 2 years ago. Oh, ouch. I knew how to ski stellar, lol. Impatient large woman behind me took me out and crunched me in half at my T8. Ooh. Control Shift T not work. Okay, I missed something there. Okay. If somebody's having a tech problem, type it back in. Iron ouch. Yeah. I have not cracked a vertebra. Thank God. That's probably one of the few things I haven't done. So, yeah. So, I hope that this helps. And there's all kinds of volunteering experiences across the U.S. and internationally if you want to go internationally. But I do hope some of this was helpful as far as what to expect, what's involved. In some places, one thing I forgot to mention is if you go on a volunteer experience abroad, check about any shots that you may need. We didn't have to have anything special for where we went other than what they suggest usually in the U.S. Your basic shots that you take, your regular vaccinations as a child, your flu shots, things like that. But if you go overseas, that changes. So if you go on a program that is organized by MVM, we've been trained to give you a list of what shots you might need and to direct you to go to a physician of your choice and ask for more information. And that's just part of having an experienced team leader. So, no skiing for you. Yep. Let me see. Iron's also saying, changed my life, stellar, lol, especially 3 years after the head-on collision with a drunk lady. Ugh. Yes. There's no excuse for driving drunk. To reopen a browser tab you closed. Yep. And you talked about things that are in the skill level. One of the times we went on a trip, we had 2 minors that went with us. So we put one of the ladies with them and just kind of asked her to just kind of keep an eye on them whenever we went to restaurants, just to make sure they didn't try to sneak alcohol in. Because, kids when they're not with their parents, and sometimes even when they are, will try things. So we just asked this lady, would she mind just sitting next to them at a restaurant just to make sure they behaved appropriately? And lo and behold, it worked. She loved it. Absolutely loved it. She just kind of had this gift with kids. She loved it. Let's see. There you go. Valerie's saying that she had to get shots to go to India in March. And some people do go volunteering in India. So that kind of information doesn't always get conveyed like it should. And that's one of the things you need to look at when you're choosing a volunteer program is, do they have information like that that they give out? I think that's really important. But again, on U.S.-based trips, you don't have to worry about that. Iron says, nope, haven't been in 30 years now. Who could afford it anyway? Between those 2 women, not much of anything, but they're out having fun still. I'm sorry. I have felt that way about some of the experiences that I've had. I totally get you. Very frustrating. So, does anybody have any other questions about volunteering or, voluntourism, about, what is it, who can go, and so forth? I'm also going to toss up another couple of pictures here so you can see. And every experience is different, and every team leader does things a little differently. But you always just want to make sure you have an experienced team leader. Or when I say, let me qualify. When I say experienced, I'm not always talking about leading the team, but you don't want to have somebody who comes in straight off the street and says, "Hey, I want to lead a team to pick a place and let's go," if they've never been on a mission trip. So that's huge. And sometimes you do have people who, this is one of my shots from Yukon. Sometimes you do have people who want to do that, and like that's one of the screening things with UMVM is they ask you, have you been on mission trips before? And there's a process to become a mission team leader, and I like that. I gives me less to worry about. So, yeah. So anyway, if y'all should have any other questions, just drop those down in the comments below. Do subscribe if you haven't already done so, because that's how we grow, and tell people, and all that stuff. You know the routine. So, and I'm going to pull this other little thing up here too. I know I'm always asked about what the Alaska Highway is like. So I want to pull up a picture here that I can't find. Oh, did I close that out? I hope I did not. Here we go. And this will kind of give you an idea, if it'll download and whatnot. This will kind of give you an idea, some of the scenery that I had on the Alaska Highway and critters. So this is a little doll sheep, Dall sheep. Looks like a mountain goat, but it's not. And I put over in the community tab, I put this photo up and some more. There are actually several sheep in this picture. Go try to find them. They blend in like crazy. So anyway, there you go. Hope you all have a great night. And I hope that you have a good experience, whether you're taking a vacation or traveling on a volunteer experience. Valerie also is saying, good night, all. I'm going to jump in the shower. My legs are aching from trying to stand up on a small boat fighting waves this morning. Gotcha. Totally got you on that. But thank you all so much for coming. Again, like, subscribe, and share, y'all. And have a great night. And I'll see you on a couple of videos later this week. So y'all take care. Good night.